The night before my 70th birthday, my deceased wife, Margaret, came to me in a dream and whispered urgently, "Vernon, don't wear the shirt from Mason and Lauren Hayes. Please don't wear that shirt." I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding like it was trying to break out of my chest. It was true. My son Mason and his wife Lauren had recently given me a beautiful light gray dress shirt for my birthday celebration. When I examined it closely the next day, I discovered something that made my heart stop. Before I tell you the rest of this chilling true story, I'm curious. Where are you watching this from right now? Please subscribe to the channel, like button. Drop your city and the time in the comments below. I'd love to know how many of you have learned to trust those mysterious feelings when something just isn't right. 3:23 in the morning. The digital clock's red glow pierced through the darkness as I jolted awake, gasping like I'd been held underwater. My pajamas stuck to my back, drenched despite the comfortable South Texas spring night. Margaret had been standing at the foot of our bed, as vivid as the day we married 46 years ago. Her silver hair shimmered in the moonlight, and those warm hazel eyes that had guided me through decades now burned with desperate urgency. "Vernon," she'd said in that familiar soft Texas drawl, "you listen to me now. Don't wear that shirt Mason and Lauren brought you. Do you hear me, honey? Don't you dare put on that gray dress shirt." 4 times she had repeated those words, each time more insistent, before fading into shadows like morning mist. I sat up, trembling hands running through my white hair. The house creaked around me with familiar sounds. 29 years in this Alamo Heights neighborhood. Yet tonight, everything felt different. Through the window, the porch light from the Ramirez house next door cast eerie shadows across their lawn. 2 weeks ago, Mason and Lauren had arrived for Sunday supper with their gift. The presentation had been elaborate: expensive department store box, silver tissue paper, the whole show. My daughter-in-law had been unusually animated, her perfect blonde hair swinging, designer handbag clutched like armor. "Dad, this is for your big day," Mason had announced, green eyes bright with what I thought was genuine affection. The shirt was stunning, light dove gray with subtle charcoal pinstripes, Egyptian cotton that felt like silk. Lauren had nodded enthusiastically, manicured hands gesturing. "We wanted something really special. Vernon, 70 is a milestone. You'll look so distinguished at the party." Now, in the pre-dawn darkness, their insistence felt completely different. Why had Lauren been so specific about the fabric, the fit, how it would photograph under the restaurant lighting? Why had Mason mentioned 4 separate times that I absolutely had to wear it to tomorrow night's celebration at the Oaks on the River Walk? I padded to the kitchen, passing family photos lining the hallway. Mason's graduation, his wedding to Lauren 6 years ago. Holidays spanning decades of what I had believed was real happiness. At the sink, I filled a glass with water, the cool liquid doing nothing for the metallic taste of fear in my mouth. 46 years of marriage had taught me to trust Margaret's instincts even when they defied logic. She had warned me about business partners who later stole everything, about neighbors whose smiles hid dark secrets, about investments that were too good to be true. But this was our son, outside. San Antonio began its slow awakening. Garbage trucks rumbled in the distance. Early commuters started their engines. Normal sounds of a normal Wednesday morning. Yet nothing felt normal anymore. Margaret's voice echoed with crystal clarity, carrying the same conviction that had guided every major decision we ever made together. Even in death, she was trying to protect me. When morning finally came, I tried to push the dream away, but Margaret's voice kept ringing in my head as I made coffee. The aroma of fresh coffee and bacon filled the kitchen, as Mason and Lauren prepared what they called the perfect birthday breakfast. My son moved between stove and counter, while Lauren arranged fresh squeezed orange juice in our best crystal glasses, insisting on using the good china. "Happy birthday, Dad." Mason set eggs Benedict before me with a flourish. 70 years young today. Lauren perched on her chair in immaculate designer workout clothes, blue eyes studying my every expression. "We wanted to make this morning extra special before tonight's celebration." I forced a smile, though Margaret's warning still echoed like thunder. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." Mason waved it off and sat down. "Speaking of tonight," his expression grew suddenly serious, almost urgent. "Dad, you absolutely have to wear that gray dress shirt we picked out. It's perfect for your big day." Something in his tone made my fork pause halfway to my mouth. There was pressure there that felt completely wrong coming from my own son. Lauren leaned forward, manicured fingers drumming against the oak table. "You did try it on, didn't you, Vernon? We had it tailored specifically. The color will photograph beautifully under the restaurant's lighting," I answered carefully, watching their reactions. "I haven't had a chance yet." Mason's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, while Lauren's smile froze on her face. "Well, you should definitely do that today," she pressed, her voice carrying a note I couldn't place. "We want everything absolutely perfect for tonight. The shirt, the celebration, everything." My phone buzzed. Emily's name on the screen. I welcomed the interruption like a drowning man grabs a rope. "Hey, sweetheart," I answered, stepping toward the window. "Happy birthday." "Daddy, we're 25 minutes out. Noah's been asking about Grandpa's birthday cake since we left Houston." I chuckled, picturing my 6-year-old grandson. "Tell him Grandpa can't wait to see him too." Tyler wanted to know about dress code. "Business casual is fine." As I hung up, I caught Mason and Lauren exchanging a brief, sharp look that made my stomach clench. "Everything okay with Emily?" Mason asked, tone carefully casual. "They'll be here soon," I said, studying my son's face. When had those worry lines appeared around his eyes? When had his smile started looking so forced? Lauren cleared her throat. "Vernon, about that shirt. It would really mean the world if you wore it tonight. We put so much thought into it. Mason was so excited about surprising you." There it was again. That underlying pressure that felt more like a demand than a loving request. In 35 years of being Mason's father, I had never heard him speak with such urgency about something as simple as clothing. I remembered the Sunday they presented the gift, how Lauren had insisted on staying while I opened it, watching my reaction with hawk eyes, how Mason had repeated 4 times that I simply had to wear it. "Of course," I heard myself saying, though every instinct screamed the opposite. "I'm sure it'll be perfect." Mason's shoulders visibly relaxed, and Lauren's smile finally reached her eyes. They finished breakfast with renewed chatter about the evening plans, reservations, guest list. Normal conversation that should have felt comfortable but instead felt like watching actors deliver rehearsed lines. After they left for work, the house fell silent, and Margaret's warning stopped feeling like a dream and started feeling like a prophecy. The afternoon stretched endlessly, each tick of the grandfather clock echoing through empty rooms. Emily wouldn't arrive until 6. The party wasn't until 7. Hours alone with nothing but Margaret's voice in my head. I tried reading the San Antonio Express news, but the words blurred. My mind kept circling back to breakfast, to the strange intensity in Mason's voice when he insisted on that particular shirt. By 3 o'clock, I couldn't stand it anymore. The walk to our master bedroom felt longer than usual, Our walk-in closet still smelled faintly of Margaret's lavender sachets, a ghost of comfort that today only sharpened my dread. The shirt hung where I'd left it 2 weeks ago, protected by a clear garment bag between my Sunday suit and navy blazer. Even through the plastic, the dove-gray fabric shimmered with quality, subtle pinstripes catching the overhead light. I unzipped the bag, the expensive Egyptian cotton heavy in my hands, easily a $500 shirt, the kind of gift that should have filled me with gratitude, not this sick anxiety. Carrying it to the window where afternoon sunlight streamed in, I examined it closely. The craftsmanship was flawless, perfectly aligned seams, mother-of-pearl buttons, French cuffs, everything screaming old-world elegance. So why did touching it make my skin crawl? I spread the shirt across our king-size bed, the same bed where Margaret had appeared hours earlier. The fabric lay smooth and pristine, no visible signs of tampering. Yet something felt deeply wrong. Methodically, I ran my hands along every inch, starting with the shoulders and working down. The weight felt consistent throughout the body and sleeves. But when my fingers reached the collar area, I froze. There was something different. Not visible, but unmistakable to touch. A slight thickness, as if extra material had been sewn between the outer fabric and inner lining. Subtle, almost impossible to notice unless you were looking for it. My heart began pounding as I examined the area more carefully. The collar looked perfectly normal, stitching undisturbed. Yet that extra thickness remained, concentrated in a small section right behind where the collar would rest against my neck. I stood back, staring at the innocent-looking garment. Was I losing my mind? Was grief and age making me paranoid about a perfectly normal dress shirt? Mason was my son, my flesh and blood. Lauren had never shown me anything but respect and affection. But Margaret's voice whispered through my memory with absolute clarity. Don't wear that shirt. In 46 years of marriage, Margaret had never once steered me wrong. Not about contractors trying to cheat us. Not about medical second opinions. Not about business deals that would have ruined us. Her intuition had bordered on supernatural, and I had learned to trust it completely. Standing in our bedroom surrounded by 46 years of shared memories, I made my decision. If there was even the slightest chance something was wrong with this shirt, I had to know. My hands trembled as I reached for Margaret's old sewing scissors in her antique Singer sewing box. If I was wrong, I would ruin Mason's expensive gift. But if I was right, the tiny silver scissors felt impossibly heavy as I positioned them against the collar. Margaret's sewing box sat open beside me on the bed, contents scattered like surgical tools, thread spools, measuring tape, the little silver thimble she had worn smooth with decades of use. I took a steadying breath and made the first careful cut. The fabric parted easily under the sharp blade, revealing the shirt's inner construction. At first, everything looked normal. Standard interfacing, professional stitching, quality materials throughout. But as I carefully widened the small opening, something unexpected tumbled out. Fine white powder, delicate as confectioner's sugar, spilled across our dark navy bedspread in a thin stream. I jerked back instinctively, the scissors clattering to the hardwood floor as more of the substance continued to pour from the hidden pocket I had just opened. For a long moment I could only stare. The powder was odorless, almost weightless, settling into the fabric like freshly fallen snow. There was perhaps 2 heaping tablespoons worth, but its presence in my birthday shirt sent ice water through my veins. This was no accident. Someone had deliberately sewn this substance into the collar, concealing it so expertly that even a careful examination wouldn't reveal it. Only Margaret's warning had led me to this discovery. My hands shook as I reached for my phone and scrolled to the name I needed. Doctor. Russell Carter had been my friend since college, a brilliant chemist who spent 35 years analyzing everything from industrial compounds to street drugs. If anyone could tell me what this powder was, it was Russ. Vernon. His voice carried surprise when he answered. This is unexpected. How are you? The words tumbled out in a rush. Russ, I found something, and I think someone is trying to kill me. The line went quiet for a second. Then his tone shifted to deadly serious. What kind of something? White powder. Fine, like flour. It was sewn into a shirt collar, hidden where no one would ever find it unless they knew exactly where to look. Jesus. Vernon, don't touch it anymore. Don't even breathe near it until we know what it is. Can you get a sample to my lab? How much do you need? Just a pinch sealed in plastic. But Vernon, be extremely careful. If someone hid powder in clothing, it's not baby powder. The 15-minute drive to Russell's private laboratory at the university felt like hours. I had carefully collected a sample with a plastic spoon, sealed it in a Ziploc while holding my breath. The rest of the powder still scattered across our bedspread like evidence of attempted murder. Russell met me at the side entrance, his usual cheerful face replaced by grim professionalism. At 68, he still had the intense focus that made him one of Texas's most respected forensic chemists. Let me see it, he said without preamble, leading me through sterile hallways to his private lab. I handed over the sample, watching as he examined it under magnification before transferring a tiny portion to a glass slide. The next 45 minutes felt eternal as he worked with machines, occasionally muttering or scribbling on a yellow legal pad. Finally, he looked up from his microscope, face pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. Vernon, he said quietly, this is poison. Contact poison specifically designed to be absorbed through the skin when mixed with perspiration and body heat. The words hit me like punches. What would it do worn against your neck for several hours, especially during excitement or dancing? It would cause gradual absorption. First dizziness, nausea, racing heart. Then within 4 to 6 hours, full cardiac arrest. It would look completely natural. A 70-year-old man having a heart attack at his own birthday party. No one would ever question it. As Russell explained how the poison would have killed me slowly during the party, making it look like a simple heart attack, one thought consumed me. My own son wanted me dead. Russell didn't waste time with comfort. He pulled out his phone and dialed from memory. Mark, it's Russell Carter. I need you at my lab now. Attempted murder. Poison. The victim is sitting right here. 20 minutes later, Detective Mark Ramirez walked through the doors with calm, measured steps. Younger than I expected. Maybe 46. Sharp brown eyes and the kind of focus that explained why Russell trusted him completely. Mr. Hayes, he said, extending a firm handshake. Before we go any further, I need you to know your son Mason has been on our radar for 4 months. The words hit like a second body blow. What do you mean? Ramirez settled across from me, pulling out a notebook. Financial Crimes has been tracking a cryptocurrency scam that cost San Antonio investors over $18 million. Your son lost $3 million of borrowed money. $3 million, I stared, unable to process. Mason didn't have that kind of money. He borrowed it from very dangerous people out of Houston, the kind who don't accept apologies as payment. The deadline passed 2 weeks ago, exactly when he gave you the shirt. Detective Ramirez continued, voice grim. We know you have a $4 million life insurance policy. Mason is the primary beneficiary. Emily gets a smaller secondary share. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. My birthday celebration. 50 guests, rich food, wine, excitement, the insistence on that specific shirt. If the poison had worked, I would have collapsed at the Oaks, surrounded by witnesses who saw me perfectly healthy minutes earlier. What about Lauren Ramirez's expression darkened? That's where it gets interesting. Lauren Hayes, maiden name Mitchell, has a sealed record in Oklahoma. Insurance fraud 5 years ago. Her first husband died in an accidental fall 6 months after increasing his policy. Charges dropped for insufficient evidence. But the pattern is identical. I thought about Lauren's behavior that morning. Her nervous energy. How she watched my every reaction when discussing the shirt. Had she masterminded this? Had Mason been desperate enough to agree to murdering his own father, Mr. Hayes? Ramirez leaned forward. We believe your daughter-in-law is the mastermind. Your son is terrified. But Lauren has done this before. She likely convinced him it was the only way out. So what now? We catch them in the act. You attend your birthday party tonight exactly as planned, but you wear a different shirt. When they realize their plan failed, they'll panic and reveal themselves. You'll be completely safe. Undercover officers will be everywhere. I sat in that laboratory, surrounded by machines that had just saved my life, trying to imagine facing my son across a dinner table knowing he had planned to watch me die. Detective Ramirez laid out the details. 4 undercover officers, 1 businessman, 1 anniversary couple, 1 at the bar, 1 monitoring from the parking lot, all with clear sight lines and radio contact. By 5:30, the plan was in motion. I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting a simple white dress shirt I had owned for 20 years. It felt strange wearing something so plain for what should have been special, but the contrast would be unmistakable. Mason and Lauren had been very specific about the gray shirt. The doorbell rang at exactly 6, followed by little feet racing across hardwood floors. Grandpa Noah's voice echoed with pure 6-year-old joy. I scooped him into a hug that suddenly felt more precious than diamonds. There's my favorite grandson, I said, holding him tight. Emily appeared next, auburn hair catching the evening light. Happy birthday. Dad, she said, hugging me with the kind of love that conveyed everything words couldn't. Tyler followed with a wrapped package and an easy smile. Looking sharp. Vernon. Ready for the big night. The drive to the Oaks on the Riverwalk felt surreal. Noah chattered about birthday cake while Emily discussed seating. Normal family conversation that should have filled me with joy, but instead felt like voices from another lifetime. The restaurant buzzed with evening energy. Our private dining room decorated with silver balloons and flowers. A huge, happy 70th Vernon banner across one wall. Mason and Lauren arrived shortly after us, both impeccably dressed. Bright smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Mason in charcoal gray. Lauren in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Dad. Mason's embrace felt normal for a split second. Then his eyes found my shirt. The change was instant. Confusion followed by something that looked like pure panic. Dad, he said carefully. Where's the gray shirt? The one Lauren and I picked out. Oh, that, I replied lightly. I decided to go with something more comfortable. You know how I am with new clothes. Lauren stepped forward. Smile now painted on. But Vernon, we chose that shirt specifically for tonight. The color, the fit. Everything was perfect for photographs. I'm sure this will photograph just fine, I said, watching her exchange a worried glance with Mason. More guests arrived. Old colleagues, neighbors, friends who had known Margaret and me for decades. The room filled with laughter and conversation that should have marked a milestone. But I watched only Mason and Lauren. They stood near the windows engaged in increasingly urgent whispered conversation, Lauren's hands moving expressively. Mason running fingers through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. Everything all right, I asked, approaching during a lull. Of course, Dad. Mason replied too quickly. Just discussing the schedule. Lauren's laugh sounded forced. We want everything perfect for your special day. As dinner service began, their anxiety became impossible to hide. Lauren barely touched her salmon, constantly checking her phone. Mason excused himself 4 times for business calls, returning each time more agitated. The undercover officers played their roles perfectly. The businessman occasionally glanced our way. The anniversary couple shared quiet conversation and wine. The solo man at the bar seemed absorbed in his phone, but never missed a thing. As the party continued and more guests arrived, I watched my son and daughter-in-law unravel in real time. It was time to end the charade. The moment came during dessert, as servers distributed slices of the chocolate cake Noah had helped choose. The room buzzed with comfortable conversation, guests sharing stories from my construction company days and reminiscing about Margaret. Exactly the warm celebration it should have been, until I stood slowly and tapped my wine glass with a fork until every conversation died. 29 faces turned toward me expectantly. Friends, neighbors, colleagues who had come to celebrate what they thought was simply a man's 70th birthday. Thank you all for being here tonight, I began, my voice steadier than I expected. Your presence means more to me than you know, especially since losing Margaret. Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the room. At the far end of the table, Mason and Lauren sat frozen, faces masks of forced attention. I had planned to give a different speech tonight. I continued, meeting my son's eyes across the room. Something about gratitude and family and the blessing of reaching this age surrounded by people I love. Mason's jaw tightened. Lauren's knuckles went white, gripping her napkin. But tonight I discovered something that changed everything. I paused, letting the words settle over the suddenly silent room. I discovered that my son and daughter-in-law tried to murder me. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Gasps echoed. Chairs scraped. Someone screamed. Dad, what are you talking about? Mason shot to his feet, face flushing red. Have you lost your mind? This is insane. Is it? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small plastic bag containing the white powder Russell had analyzed. This is contact poison. It was sewn into the collar of that gray dress shirt you and Lauren insisted I wear tonight. Lauren had gone completely pale, designer makeup unable to hide the terror in her eyes. Vernon, you're obviously confused. Maybe we should get you to a doctor. The plan was simple, I continued, ignoring her protests. I would wear the poison shirt. The substance would absorb through my skin over the evening, causing what would look like a natural heart attack. A 70-year-old man celebrating with rich food and wine. No one would question it. This is insane, Mason's voice cracked with desperation. Dad, you're having a breakdown. We would never $3 million. Mason, the number hung in the air like a death sentence. That's how much you lost in that cryptocurrency scam. That's how much you owe people who kill for less. The color drained from my son's face. Around the room, guests sat in stunned silence, some covering their mouths, others staring in horror. $4 million, I continued relentlessly, is exactly what my life insurance policy is worth. With me dead, you could pay your debts and still have money left over. That's when Lauren broke. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she screamed, tears streaming down her perfect face. Mason was going to die. They were going to kill him if he didn't pay. What choice did we have, Lauren? Shut up. Mason lunged toward her, but it was too late. It was my idea. Okay, she sobbed. Composure shattered. I knew how to do it. I'd done it before. It would have looked natural. No one would have suspected. We were desperate. That's when Detective Ramirez and his officers entered the dining room. badges clearly visible, moving with practiced efficiency toward Mason and Lauren. Mason Hayes. Lauren Hayes. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder, Ramirez announced, voice cutting through the chaos. Mason didn't resist as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, but his eyes never left mine, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "Dad, I'm sorry. I never wanted this." 5 months later, I sat in the Behar County Courthouse watching my son receive his sentence. The judge's words echoing, Mason Hayes, 18 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Lauren Hayes, 27 years as the primary architect of this conspiracy. Mason turned to look at me one last time before the bailiff led him away. Orange jumpsuit hanging loose. He had lost 30 pounds during the proceedings. Our eyes met, and I saw the little boy who used to run to me with scraped knees. Lauren showed no vulnerability. Chin high, blonde hair perfect despite facing nearly 3 decades in prison, maintaining the cold composure that had almost ended my life. The weeks following were the darkest since losing Margaret. Emily moved in temporarily with Tyler and Noah, taking leave from her nursing job. "Dad, you can't blame yourself," she said one evening as we watched Noah chase fireflies. Mason made his choices. Lauren manipulated him, but he still chose. 6 months after sentencing, I decided to visit Mason in prison. The Huntsville unit was concrete walls, razor wire, and institutional grimness. Mason looked 15 years older when they brought him to the visiting room. Gray at the temples. "Dad," he whispered, "I didn't think you'd come." After minutes of silence, he began speaking in a rush, as if he'd been holding it in for months. "It was never supposed to happen. I was so scared. Dad, these people weren't just threatening me. They knew where Emily lived, where Noah went to kindergarten. They had pictures." He told me about the cryptocurrency investment, the slick broker who convinced him to leverage everything. When the scheme collapsed, he owed money to men who collected with violence. Lauren said she knew a way out, told him about her first husband, how it had worked perfectly before, made it sound so simple. You'd just fall asleep at the party. "Dad," but it would have been murder. "Mason," I said quietly, "your father's murder. Looking at this broken man who had once been my pride." Anger gave way to pity. "Mason," I said, reaching across to touch his hand, "I forgive you." He looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "How can you possibly forgive me because you're still my son? Because forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I choose to carry." 2 months later, I drove to Mission Burial Park where Margaret rested. I brought yellow roses and sat on our bench. "Thank you," I said aloud. "Thank you for the warning. Thank you for saving me." A gentle breeze stirred the live oaks, and for a moment I swear I felt her hand on my shoulder, standing at Margaret's grave. I finally understood that love sometimes means protecting those we care about even from beyond. Today, 2 years later, I live in a small house just 7 minutes from Emily's family. Every Saturday, Noah runs through my front door with boundless energy, calling Grandpa as he shows me his latest drawings or tells me about school. These moments have become my anchor, reminding me that life continues, that love endures even after betrayal tries to destroy it. Looking back on this true story, I realize how dangerously naive I was. For 70 years, I believed family meant absolute safety, that blood guaranteed loyalty. I trusted without question, loved without boundaries, and nearly died because of it. Don't be like I was. Don't assume sharing DNA means sharing values. Even those closest to us can harbor darkness we never imagined. The hardest lesson I learned is that sometimes the people who know us best are the ones most capable of hurting us. They know our weaknesses, our routines, our blind spots. Mason knew I would never suspect him. Lauren knew I would wear whatever gift they gave because that's who I am, a man who trusted his family completely. But here's what I want you to understand from these grandpa stories. Betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. Yes, it changes you forever. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the shadows behind familiar faces, but I haven't let it make me bitter or closed off from love. God has a way of protecting us even when we can't protect ourselves. Margaret's warning came from beyond this world, a reminder that love transcends death, and that we're never truly alone in our darkest moments. That supernatural intervention saved my life and taught me that faith and intuition often speak louder than logic. If you're living through your own betrayal right now, know this: healing is possible. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, isn't about excusing what they did. It's about refusing to carry their poison in your heart. Mason will serve his time, and I've made my peace with that. But I won't let his choices steal my remaining years or my capacity to love. These grandpa stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings, lessons, reminders that life can change in an instant. This true story nearly ended with my death, but instead became a testament to survival, to the power of trusting your instincts, and to the mysterious ways love protects us. Trust your dreams, listen to your gut, and remember that sometimes the most important true story you'll ever hear is the one that teaches you to question everything, even family. If this story touched your heart or opened your eyes, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Share your own experiences with family, betrayal, or supernatural warnings. Your story might save someone else's life. And if these grandpa stories resonate with you, please subscribe for more powerful true stories that remind us all how precious and fragile life really is. This is Vernon Hayes, signing off.